Hello, everybody who's already here. This is Scott from Script Reader Pro. I can see a number of people are logging on from all over the world, which is great. If everyone can hear me, can you just kind of give me a thumbs up? Hear me and see me. Make sure I'm coming at y'all. Okay, Barbara Boyd can hear and see me, so I'm assuming that everybody else can as well. If you can't, make sure your speakers are on and you can see your screen. Just going to wait a couple minutes for other people to join in. Make sure that we're not starting too early for everybody. Great to see so many people here. We had about 100 people last time. This is the second webinar that I've done. The first one went well. Seemed to give a lot of people a lot of ideas and excitement and motivation. So that's what this is all about. That's what we're hoping for. So just to oh yeah, man, people from all over the world. We got people from Ontario and Australia and the United States, Los Angeles. So yeah, that's great. People from everywhere. So welcome. Thanks for coming in. Today we are talking about visual storytelling. So I'm going to get into some some really great advice, stuff that's worked for me over the years. Oh, Caesar just asked where Desiree is. That's hilarious. She's like, should I come on today? And I said, oh, we don't have quite enough time to cover all that. But Desiree is my wife, and she does the podcast with me. If anyone's not quite gone to the podcast yet, feel free to check it out. Go to any podcast platform that you use and just type Script Reader Pro, 3 different words, podcast. So it's fun. We talk about everything. We just had one this week where we went over the first 10 pages of Bones and All, which is very surprising movie, very surprising script. So people seem to enjoy that. So check it out. We got about 25 or more episodes now. So it's entertaining. Where's my hat? I didn't put one on today. I don't think I had one on last time. I can't remember. I was like, I'm not really. I freshly shaved, so I was like, I think I'll just leave my hat off today. But nice to know that people know who I am. So anyways, we're going to talk about a lot. I'm going to try and cram in as much as I possibly can for you. I'm going to bring up a few script examples and kind of showcase different styles of visual storytelling, and just kind of give you some tips and tricks on how to really make that page come alive and why it's important. And then after we kind of go over that, I am going to bring up my writing program on the screen, and we're just going to kind of start a screenplay. Get some ideas from you, some locations or whatever, and just kind of throw it together and show how to use as few words possible to get something across. Show the difference between here's a really short visual sentence, here's another way to do that sentence, and here's kind of the wrong way or unencouraged way, not encouraged way to do it. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. And in the end, we will have a little bit of time for questions. So if you do have questions, don't throw them in the feed yet, because it's going to be hard for me to find them. I will let you know when questions will give you a little short blurb and moment to kind of sit there and get ready for that and start throwing questions out there. So if you have questions even here, and we can always answer them on the podcast as well. So you can always send an email to hello@scriptreaderpro.com and you just put in podcast question. You can always email me, reach out to me for anything, scott@scriptreaderpro.com. I'm just one of the team here, and our goal is to kind of help you craft wonder. That's how we see ourselves. So if everyone is ready to go, I am going to start talking about screenwriting. And just so everybody knows, I don't see myself as a guru or a gospel, or the things I say aren't the end all and be all. Okay. Everyone has a different way of explaining things. Everyone has a different way of trying to teach people or explain things to people. And the way I do it helps people see things in a way that they may possibly have not seen it before. And I try to make it as simple as possible. So that's kind of what we're doing. If you learn something from it, great. If you're able to put it into action, great. If you don't agree with me, great, right? That's the point. Everyone has their own voice, their own style, their own, process, right? If everybody wrote the same, and if everybody had their same voice, then what's the point, right? We all have something different we bring to the table. We all have our own set of life experiences. When it comes to screenwriting, it is such a different kind of writing, right? It's not a novel. It's not a Screenplays are more like a short story than a full book, right? It's very minimal. It's cutting out anything that doesn't need to be there. In a book, you can have a person, you can have a whole chapter about someone getting home from work and how they go about making supper and getting in the shower and getting out of the shower and what they do in front of the mirror. That's all in a novel because there's time for that. In a screenplay, there is no time for that, and we don't need it, right? Every scene we see must be important and imperative. If you can remove any scene from your screenplay and it doesn't actually affect anything or affect anything enough, then either the scene shouldn't be there at all, or the reason for that scene must be stronger, right? It must be in there. It must, I always say you have to, every scene, every choice, every line of dialogue should fight for why it must be there, right? And so that's a big part of visual storytelling as well, which we're talking about today, right? Visual storytelling is key because, as you probably saw on the landing page for the webinar, I said, it's not about making someone, read it. You need to make them see it, right? It's about making those words create images so that we forget we're reading. The best screenplays you'll ever read, the best screenplays I read, are the ones when I forgot I was reading. I forgot. I didn't even notice I was flipping pages, right? And then at the end, and it's still to this day, there's so many scripts that I've read that I think about them and I remember watching the movie. I thought it was a movie I watched until I realized, okay, wait a minute, no, that's not even a movie yet. That was a script I read. So that's great writing. And it's all about making sure that you are doing whatever possible to give the people making the movie the idea, or the TV pilot, whatever it is, the idea of that image, right? You're making them understand how that will look, right? And that's the big deal. Yes, you're writing a screenplay, right? You're writing it. You are bringing it to life with your words and your thoughts and how you see it coming to life. But it's not a literary document, right? That's how we set up this webinar. Yes, you have to read it because people need to read it in order to decide if they want to make that into a movie, right? There is a script that must be read. And if it's written poorly, it's not going to do well. No matter how great the idea might be, you pitch someone the idea, they say, oh, I love that. Give me the script. And they get the script and they still love the concept, but the writing just didn't do it for them. They might say, hey, we want to have a conversation about your idea. And, we have some things that we want to change or whatever. But if the writing isn't setting it up to come alive for them, then they're probably just going to set it down or pass on it or whatever, right? No matter how great the idea is. Screenwriting is about storytelling in a visual way, right? Think about this. And this is my test, right? And this, I think, makes sense for a lot of people. So if you watch a TV show or watch a movie, right? You've watched it and you tell someone about what it was after, okay? 95% probably of what you tell people is what you saw, right? You're not going to list off all the dialogue that the characters said to each other. You're not. You may have some cool lines. Oh, and then he said this and it was awesome, or she said this, right? You'll have a couple of those, but most of it, you're going to just remember everything you saw because that's how most people's brains work, right? So that is an example of how to keep in mind how strong and how important visuals are, okay? And I'm not someone to tell someone how they have to do their process, okay? I hate it. I just hate it when someone says, okay, this is how you have to do it. You have to write in these 8 master sequences. You have to start from scratch and know your ending. You have to, you never outline because outlining is awful, right? You want to make sure that whatever your process is works. But outlining, I find for me, anyways, and anyone else who might do it, is normally when you outline your script, you're writing the whole outline and you're not really writing the dialogue, right? You're like, this scene is going to have this happen. Oh, here's some things that happen in the scene. This character does this. Oh, throw this line of dialogue in. But normally all your dialogue isn't there because it comes after, right? And so that can help, remind you about how visual it's supposed to be, right? So using words that create images, right? not explaining too much, not going into details that aren't important, right? A lot of, and there's always that argument that people have about how, like John is thinking about how this is going to affect him. People are like, no, well, don't put John's thinking, because we can't see that. At the same time, if you tell us that we're looking at John as he's thinking about what he's going to do, there still is a visual in that, right? So it's kind of like, you should or you shouldn't, right? It's all depends on how you execute it, right? Same thing with like character descriptions. People are like, oh, well, don't list off, oh, he was an accountant in another life, but now he's he's a dancer in Thunder Down Under, right? We don't need to, we're not going to understand why that is an important visual, and the audience is never going to get that. And that's a great thing to keep in mind. That's a good note for yourself, is when you write something, ask, is there anything in here the audience won't see, right? If it's important to know that a character was an accountant or whatever, then as you're showing his workspace or something, you're going to show a book on accounting, or you're going to have a certificate on his wall, on the wall, showing that he was a CPA, right? Something visual that we can see. That's the big difference. You have to only put on the page what's able to be shot, what's able to be turned into motion, turned into a visual, right? Because if you don't, like, that's the development process. And I learned this very early on in my career. When I would deliver a script to someone or pitch a script to someone and they read it, I would watch it go through that development process, right? Because there's always a process. Even if someone absolutely loves your screenplay and says, this is the best thing I've ever read, I wouldn't change a detail. They're going to then follow it up with, and here's 7 pages of notes that we need you to deal with, right? Like, there's always going to be changes. But that's the key, is trying to do everything you possibly can to get your script as further along that process of development as possible, right? Not having any words, any sentences, any big paragraphs that they're just going to cut anyways, because they will do that. They will have to go in, and if it just saves everybody time, and it makes them more interested in moving forward faster, right? Who wants to spend a penny if they don't have to anymore in the film business, right? So even if they love it and they think it's ready, they're gonna say, okay, well, we'll take this on, but first we think you have to kind of like clean it up a bit or do this or do that. They're not going to pay you for it anymore. That's just, well, outside of the WGA kind of Hollywood studio system, right? Because there's rules they have to follow and all those things. But even there, they're still going to do everything they can to not fully commit. So you want to make sure that you are delivering the cleanest, fastest, most visually enticing story you can. Okay. And I'm going to go into some examples here. I'm going to bring some script pages up on the screen, and we're going to kind of go through them. Okay. But that's the thing you want to remember. And a lot of people will hear, we want more white space on the page than text. I'm going to show you, you'll see in these examples, right? But you should be able to just kind of like go into any PDF that has a script in it, any of your scripts, and just kind of like flip through the pages and see if they look heavy or not. If they look light, like, oh, okay, well, that's going to be a fast read, or this isn't wasting any words. That's what I do as a reader before I read a script. I always go in and just kind of give it a flip and say, okay, yeah, this person knows what they're doing, right? If it's heavy, if it's overloaded, if there's a 27-line paragraph, that scares me, right? It's like, oh, okay, this is either going to be overwritten, or the writer doesn't quite understand, or they were adapting a novel that they've written and they just don't quite get the difference. Because that's the thing with screenwriting, is it's nothing like anything else, right? So those are some of the things that I encourage you to keep in mind, as you're writing, right? Make that visual really come to life. So that's kind of like my little pitch on visual writing. The other thing is, I always say that, anyone can write something down to make someone see it, right? The job of a great screenwriter isn't just to make someone see what you need them to see, but make them feel what you need them to feel, right? And there's a very, very specific art to that. It's about understanding how things make someone feel. It's a silly example, but it's a pretty easy example to understand. Everyone, pretty much everyone, or anyone who has at least tried riding a bike, has fallen off of their bike, right? And normally when you fall off your bike, you hit the ground, you put your hands down. So writing in a script, John hits a rock and falls off his bike on the ground. Okay, yeah, you make us see that. But if John falls off his bike and slides along the asphalt, as he flips up his hands, all of that little gravel has dug holes in his skin, right? Like little dents in his skin. Something like that you can feel. Everyone can feel that. We remember what that's like to have that gravel sticking in our hands, right? That's just one example of you put a reader there. You make them feel it, right? So obviously not everybody has been through every single situation, right? But it's a great way to, it's just an easy, simple example. Obviously that's not great writing, but it's an easy example to help you understand. You want to make sure you're putting certain details in there that make us, really kind of internalize that, right? Visually enticing someone to fall into the script. Okay. A little tip for people that many writers just don't know, is that anything you put on a page that pulls a reader out screws up the whole process. Okay, so if you've overwritten something, or there's even a mistake like a wording typo, and everyone who knows me knows I'm bad at typos. But even a typo in that finished script will pull a reader out, and you want to do everything you can to make them just glued to the screen, right? Not to the page. Your page should become a screen for them. You want to make sure that they are fully glued to that screen. So, with that said, I'm going to go over a few examples here, and I've never done this before. Sharing the screen on here, but I'm going to share my screen and scream. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go over a certain number of things here. Just kind of show you some examples. Okay. And if you have great examples, if you have examples that you think is an amazing visual style or whatever, feel free to drop it in the comments and tell people, hey, read this script, hey, read that script. Not your own script. You guys can connect that way somewhere else, but just share some ideas, what's really helped you come to life in your writing, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to share my screen here, and the first script that we're going to go over is Get Out, and I've just got an example here of what we're kind of going to look at. First of all, can everyone see that I have shared my screen? If just someone can give me a thumbs up that you can see that my screen is shared, that would be awesome. Just because I've never done it before, and I want to make sure that you guys are seeing what I'm seeing here. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm making it big there as possible in case that it's on your phone or however you're watching. Okay, so this is just a portion of the script. It's one moment in the script, but everyone, like when I think of Get Out, I think when a lot of people think of Get Out, they remember this specific scene, right? It was in the trailer. It's a big moment. Okay, so here we are. We're outside, backyard. Chris steps out the back door and takes a cigarette out. Chris looks into the vast night around him. The crickets are deafening. Okay, so that's a good choice of words, right? So into the vast night, right? That kind of tells us this is a pretty isolated place then, because night in the city is much different than night in the middle of nowhere, right? So the crickets are deafening. Great word, right? It's an auditory word, right? It's not a visual, but deafening, like crickets, that's a lot of crickets. That's loud, right? So it's setting the tone that here's a guy, he's out for a smoke, probably trying to de-stress, and there's this vastness of the dark, and then the crickets that are kind of attacking him, right? So through that, right, suddenly Chris hears a running noise in the distance, right? A running noise. So that's, again, it's auditory, but it's also visual, because we're then looking like, where's this noise coming from? Chris peers out into the darkness. A moment of terror comes over Chris. He makes out a shape. It's now running towards him. Chris backs up in fear, right? We don't even know what this is yet, right? It's dark, but we can hear it coming. So that's visual, because we're staring in the, like everyone knows it's like to be in the dark and hear something that we're like, what was that, right? Gets closer and closer. When it's just 10 feet away, the moonlight reveals a now very close Walter, the groundskeeper, who continues running by. Chris gathers his breath. So in that moment, I mean, I remember that moment. The guy you think he's going to run right into him, and suddenly, just like bam, on a 45-degree angle, he's just done. He's out of there, right? So that's that moment. Then Chris turns back toward the kitchen window. It's not over, right? It's like, okay, that's okay. We can see him catching his breath. Like, what the hell, right? Then it's not over. He turns toward the kitchen window. Turns towards the kitchen window. Lights up from inside. Right? I don't know if that's a perfectly written sentence. I don't know if this is shooting script or whatever, but That's the visual, right? He finds himself face to face with Georgina, who, with teeth exposed in a frightening grimace, glares through the window, dead in Chris's eyes. He drops a cigarette, caught. But that visual there, right? He finds himself face to face with Georgina with teeth exposed in a frightening grimace, right? Frightening grimace. You can see that without knowing who that actress is going to be. You can see what that would look like, right? Like she's like pulling her lips open. She's trying to see as many teeth as possible. Like what? Why is she doing that, right? And that grimace glares through the window, dead in Chris's eyes. It's just that choice of words, right? The grimace is staring at him. It's not just like with teeth exposed in a wide smile at Chris, right? Like there's simplified writing and then there's visual writing. So this is, I think, a great example of how the words make us see exactly, right? And then this part just takes it to another level here, right? So then we move inside. So we're now inside with Georgina. Georgina sucks her teeth. Like you can hear it, you can feel it, the saliva, right? She doesn't actually see Chris at all. So that's interesting. I was like, okay. She examines her teeth in the reflection in the window, which front lit, right? Because there's probably light over the sink, reflects her and the room around her. Outside is invisible. So again, it's like it's taking us through the director's eyes, through the writer, right? And obviously he directed this, but through the writer's eyes of this is what it will look like. This is what a viewer is going to see. This is what they're going to feel, right? You can feel the teeth. You can feel her face moving and you can all that, right? You hear those sounds, you experience that. So that instead of saying like camera views on this or change shot or cut to close, you don't need any of that, right? This is visual writing that actually puts us with the camera, right? We are right there close. We know that we're tight on her face. We're close on her mouth. We see everything. We see the food in her teeth. Like it's telling us what we're looking at. And that makes us forget we're reading because it really does make us see exactly what you need us to see. Okay. So again, just one example and all the great scripts out there, and even scripts that haven't been discovered. That's what's making a reader immerse into the story, right? You're just like, okay, well, what? Okay, now what? Right? And so it keeps you going. It keeps you moving. Obviously, and you hear this, the first paragraph, right? Everyone's like, oh, the rule is, 4 lines or less, which is a great rule. You should try to stay under 4 lines because it makes your pages cleaner. It makes the eye move down the page. You hear the term, you should have vertical writing, or this writing needs to be more vertical than horizontal, right? And that vertical means there's a lot of white space. The sentences are short and tactile, right? So this is a 7-line paragraph, right? But I didn't notice it, right? Because it's hitting us with those visuals and that movement, and the short sentences are short, they're staccato, they're moving us along at a quick pace. So, because this could easily have been broken up, but if you broke up that paragraph, it would be really difficult to stay in that visual. Like that whole paragraph is one moment, right? If you break it, you break the moment, you break the intensity. So again, that's a really clever choice as well. And it may be intentional and it may not be intentional. Sometimes as writers, subconsciously, we don't even know why we've done something or how it's actually working. So that's an example, of putting things into perspective, putting things through on the page, and ensuring that you are delivering the right kind of visual. Okay, so again, just one short example of a page. Okay, so now I am going to show you another one. So this one is this. I mean, it's this. I think one of the best writers out there. This is one of my favorite writers, Eric Heiserer. If you haven't read an Eric Heiserer script, then prepare to read one and raise yourself another level. I'm not just talking about style and how he does things on the page, but the storytelling, the intelligent movement of story, and very, very visual. I remember reading the script and sending him a message and being like, dude, these choices you made are unbelievable. And I couldn't look away. I was processing visuals all the time. It's exactly kind of what a script really needs to do for someone. Okay, now I'm sure everyone reads this and be like, oh well, this style that he's using, he's not following proper format. You're not supposed to have that a sentence up top that ends and then no empty space before the next paragraph. Yeah, fine, true, but this is the style that he uses, and it works very well. And as you scroll through the entire script, it's not all like that. That's the key. He's being clever with his formatting, right? You look at all this stuff, it's formatted as it should be. It's going from left margin to right margin in proper sentences. But he makes the choices that he does for a reason. He wants us to feel it. And that's the thing that I set up a little bit ago. Anyone can make us see what they want us to see, right? Anyone can kind of write it down, have it move through, but not everybody can make us feel what they need us to feel. Okay, so I'm just going to look at this page here and we'll just kind of go over it to show some examples of really clever choices. Okay, and feel free to make choices like this. Don't copy his style, but like feel free to make different choices. I always say this to people who are so caught up on altering anything, is I've never in my life, in my whole career, I've never once on any script, on anyone I've dealt with, any producer, any rep, say a single thing about my formatting choices ever, right? Yes, I follow basic, classic, industry standard format, but I play with things. I use different little options that speak to me and my style, and that's what I use, to tell my stories. So yeah, play with it, use it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, someone will let you know, right? But if you do it effectively, no one says anything because you've pulled them in, right? Yeah, Eric Heiserer, one of his first projects he was pulled on, wrote the Final Destination reboot, wrote a remake of The Thing, not the remake, the prequel, right? And then Bird Box, Arrival, right? Anyways, he's amazing writer. Study him for sure. But again, looking at this page, so she reaches the back door, boards cover the door's glass inset. So easy to see, right? Then we shift, right? And this is basically just shifting shots, right? This is how he's telling us camera now goes here, camera now goes there, right? Boy and girl hold hands. Girl's knuckles go white. Great, but we know how hard she's squeezing. Boy squeezes back. So it's like, oh, okay, so these two are connected. They are scared, right? Because her knuckles have gone white, but he's a little bit braver maybe, so he squeezes back, but maybe he's just as scared. Those three sentences lock us in to feel what these kids are feeling, right? Girls' knuckles go white, right? Another way someone might write that is the girl's grip is white knuckled, right? Like it's all a matter of your style and how you explain things, but this is the fewest words you could probably use for that, right? On the floor by the door, a bird cage. Inside, a little fat budgie. Okay. Mallory bends down, cups her hands, and transfers the bird to a shoebox. So that tells us that whatever this bird is, it's either really important to them as a family or there's a reason for taking it along, right? So it coos as she covers the box and hefts it. Mallory then picks up her blindfold. Before donning it, she looks around. Okay, so interesting. Why is she putting on a blindfold, right? It's like, okay, so good. But before we even have time to really think about it, we move to the next paragraph, right? Inside, all is quiet and still. A landline phone sits on the coffee table. Nothing else around it, as if it were a holy relic. Like that, as if it were a holy relic. Like that's such a great sense. It's not, a lot of writers will have the tendency to then over-explain, right? Like that phone is in the table because it's important and they need to be able to get to it as fast as possible if an alarm goes off or someone breaks in, right? Like some writers will over explain, right? Instead of telling us in different words and explaining it to why, that it is important, he says as if it were a holy relic. That's a beautiful way to make us understand what we're looking at, right? And not just looking at it, but understanding the depth of it, the reason for it without explaining it. Like that's why he is such a brilliant writer. The choices are just unbelievable when it comes to, detail and in as few words as possible. So then Mallory secures her blindfold, reaches out and grips the door handle, takes a breath. And, what we'll see, in earlier is the kids already have their blindfolds on, right? So obviously she is in charge of these kids, right? She reaches out and grips the door handle, takes a breath. She says her line, but she's speaking to herself. So this is important. 20, 31, 54, 20, 31, 54. Here we go. And again, that's, that's dialogue, but it's visual, right? because we're like, okay, so we see 20, 31. Okay, so is that seconds? Is that feet? Is that a distance? Like what's going on? And this, right? With trembling hand, she opens the door. Brilliant, right? Absolutely brilliant. With a trembling hand, she opens the door. You don't have to tell us she's scared, right? She just takes a breath. She actually seems confident. She knows what she's doing. She's grabbed the bird. She's put it in the box. She's leading these children. Okay, she's in charge. She's good to go. No, no, no. Her hand is trembling, right? So a lot, and this is just the tendency, and I think it's because it's built into to most things that people have read in their life are novels or short stories or articles, right? And so the tendency is to say she is scared, right? Or, she is so scared, she's shaking. She is so scared, her hand is trembling. That's just over explaining, right? You don't need to. Just show us what we need to see. With trembling hand, she opens the door. Like it's brilliant, and it might not seem brilliant when you first look at it, right? But it's effective. And as you read through this, you start to not even notice how those little paragraphs are all the way they are, right? And I mean, if you like, I highly recommend reading this screenplay. If you haven't watched the movie, watch the movie. But after you've read the screenplay, if you don't want to see the big twist that's coming, stop 20 pages from the end, watch the movie, and then go back and see how they wrote it. But he makes this brilliant choice. This writing style changes depending on who we're with, which is great, right? If we're with certain people, there's a certain style. If we're with others, certain style. It definitely separates the two worlds. I've never seen anyone else do it. I remember asking him, he's like, yeah, it was a tough choice, brave choice, but I'm glad I did it. It worked. So be bold, right? Hit for the fences. Do what you need to do to separate us so we know what we're feeling and who we're with and all that kind of stuff. But be original, unique, make it your own. Okay. So that is that one. I am going to then stop sharing that. So those are two examples. I could go on forever and show 100 examples. I'm just going to show an example of one of my scripts. I'm not doing this to be like, oh, hey, look at my script. But I'm sharing it because, I wrote this script like a dozen years ago, probably. It did really well for me. It's been in development for like 10 years, which you will see happen, right? See a question there. I'll answer that later. It's important to understand the process, right? And so this script, the note I always get from people is, especially directors who read it, are like, oh my gosh, like I know exactly what this looks like. I know how I'm going to shoot it. You brought it to life in my brain, right? Are you planning to direct this? And no, I never really had an interest in the directing side of things. I don't like to be around people, so I like to hide in my basement, right? But it's had like 4 different directors attached over time, right? And projects get picked up and fall apart and picked up and fall apart. But it's always had, that's the piece that's always come in, is directors. So I'm just going to show you, some of it and explain some of my reasoning behind some of the choices that I've made, as I put it together. So this is a script of mine. It's called Mine. It's like, I don't know if anyone uses Coverfly. It's like a thing that you can use to put your scripts out there and track and all this kind of stuff. But this has been in the top 1% of all horror projects on Coverfly for years, just because it did really well in contest runs back in the day. Again, like it's been around forever, been around a long time, but it's done me really well. And as a writer, a lot of times you'll pitch someone a script, they'll read it, and it's not a project they're interested in making, or maybe it's too expensive, or it's not what they're looking for. They want a specific role for an actress or whatever, but they will then say, what else do you have? I loved your writing. Let's work together. All that kind of stuff. It's a sample. So you want to make sure that you're providing what they need to understand what you can bring to the table, right? So every choice I made in this script has been challenged. Every visual I've written 100 different ways. But this is just kind of how it starts. So, we're outside in the Appalachian Mountains. Simple blue-collar homes nestle in a shadowed valley, besieged by thick clusters of evergreens that rise toward mountaintops. So that might be a little wordy for some people, might not. I could have just said, home, shadowed in a forest, or, by the nearby trees or whatever, right? But I wanted to kind of, besieged was a big choice, because I wanted people to feel like this is taking over, right? This is, I'm kind of trying to set a tone of atmosphere, right? Thick clusters of evergreens rising toward mountaintops. I'm trying to be active in what I'm making people see, right? So I can deliver this line. Lording over above stares a vile, inky skeleton of steel crawling high into the sky. The town's blood, Blackpool mine. I made specific choices in here to have the mine become a living, breathing thing. The script follows a collapse of a mine, and it's not really about that. It's about the survivors who come out and how they've all been affected. I always thought that was more interesting than seeing a bunch of people waiting to be saved. So I wanted that mind to really come to life, right? So lording over above, right? That, I mean, you can see that when someone lords over you, you know what that means. They are above you and they're looking down and they're in charge, they control, right? And then a vile, inky skeleton, right? Like that's, people always like, man, I can see it, right? So inky, it's dark, it's black, it's maybe sticky, right? It's vile. It's like no one wants to see this in their town, right? It's a skeleton of steel clawing high into the sky. It's active, right? The town's blood, Blackpool mine, right? Pretty much you should be able to understand the town's blood. Like if this mine wasn't there, there'd be no town, right? And so people have always said, I got so much from that one short description. So it's important to make choices that will set a tone and an atmosphere. And this is a horror movie, so I wanted to make sure that was set up instantly. And that's why I made certain choices of words, right? So then we cut into the coal mine tunnel. We're in the elevator bay. I can't even tell you how long. I mean, I remember I've written this when I was writing the scene. I must have written it 500 times. I just had such a hard time trying to figure out how do I move from outside to inside. So, and then I turned it into this short 6-word sentence, right? Deep, dark, stagnant, 2,385 feet down. And you'll notice the use of caps there. I like to use caps in my writing for my style to emphasize things, right? Not just when I first introduce a character. I want something to hit someone and make an impact. So deep, dark, stagnant. And then that just a number, like that's just the sheer idea of how many feet that is underground, right? And then again, I try to be kind of use like animalistic choices as I explained this mine, right? The watchful, squinting eyes of dim, dust-covered lamps barely breached the thick, clammy air. I wanted people to feel like they were in something that was living and breathing. I mean, the mind doesn't come to life. That's not what the movie's about, but watchful, squinting eyes of dim, dust-covered lamps. I just could have said, dim, dust-covered lamps line the wall. Okay, well, that still gives a visual, but I wanted them to feel like something's watching you. Like this is a place that isn't normal, right? So, just examples, right? Wanting to make sure that you're using your words right. You're using your words in a visual way. So again, it's not to show and celebrate. Maybe go, oh, look at this, right? If you don't think it's good, you don't think it's good, right? Whatever. Everyone has their own opinion, but I always kind of, this is one of my favorite pages I've written, and it makes, from what people have told me, right? It makes people instantly want to go and just explore, right? So that's, just wanted to share that with people so you can understand, differences in different people's style, but all in ways that provide those visuals, right? And make people feel something, right? Like that, like I said, anyone can make someone see something, right? But everyone wants to feel it. And I that's what I've been told, is that made people feel that mind around them, feel the claustrophobic energy. And, it's not for everybody, and it's dark, and right. So anyways, example. So those are three very different examples, that you can kind of use to understand how you can then make sure that your writing is as visual as possible. Okay. Thank you, Mark. Okay, so what I want to do here is just kind of show an example in real time of sentences. I want to take a description of something and then write it in 3 different ways. Just spur of the moment. It's not going to be perfect. Just to kind of showcase how it looks and how it can look as you're writing it. So someone just I don't know, pick one, but throw something out there of a room or the kind of place we are in, or something, so that I can just kind of like type in my writing program. How you might put something together visually. So maybe, someone throw out, a movie theater or a bedroom or whatever it might be. And then, a couple of objects in that room, or what you want us to feel. You just kind of throw a bunch of words out, and I'll just pick some and go. So Alex has got prison cell, haunted hotel room, desert scene with people walking. Okay. Well, let's go with prison cell. It was the first one up there, nice and contained. So wildfire circus tent, worn down couch. Okay, so I'll just wait a second. We'll get a few more, and I'll see if I can put something together here. Outside venue, an engagement party, motel room with ashtrays and beer bottles. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna pick this one. I'm gonna put motel room, ashtrays, beer bottles. Right there, I think there's some really great visuals to play with. Okay, so if someone wants to like throw out there what kind of genre this is, maybe what is it? A drama? Is it a comedy? Is it sci-fi? Is it horror? What are we doing with the motel room? If someone throws out an idea of why we're what we're there. Romance. Okay, romance movie. Okay, so all right. So here we go. I'm just going to share my screen here and start typing. Okay, so you'll see I use Fade In. Fade In is my program of choice. I've been using it forever. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me what writing program you use, as long as you use a writing program. Have something that is already built for you to write in. Don't wing it. Don't try and make it perfect in Word. It's not going to work in the right way. The margins might look right to you, but someone who reads hundreds of scripts a year is going to see that it is not the same. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are doing everything you can to be as presented as professional as possible. Okay, and Fade In. I don't get paid to say anything about it, nor does Script Reader Pro, but it's inexpensive. Great support, always free updates, and it's seamless. I have ADHD to the extreme. I have trouble focusing, and so this, I love how minimal it is. So that's why I like it. But okay, so Fade In. So we are interior, motel room, night. Okay. You know that kind of thing. In your slug line, in your timestamp, don't try and be really specific. 2:30 in the afternoon, or lunchtime, right? Day, night. That's kind of it's really just there so they understand: are they shooting it in the daytime? Are they shooting it at night? Right? It's that kind of thing. A lot of readers will skim the subject line, not read every detail. If you have something in there like flashback or dream sequence, they may miss it, so you might want to put it elsewhere. But just day or night, or if it's like, oh, it's sunrise, okay, important, or dawn, or whatever, right? But don't get crazy, with your timestamps. Okay, so we're in the motel room at night. So this is a romance. We want to kind of set a tone that this is, not a heavy movie, right? You think ashtrays, beer bottles. Okay, so is this person drunk, right? So, motel room. We've said in motel room. So what we'll sometimes see is this. Right? Writers will write, okay, so this motel room is small and a little dirtier than it should be. Something like that, right? We don't need this motel room because we're in a hotel room. So we don't need that, right? And that might seem simple, might seem like, oh, but shouldn't I tell them? No, you've already told us, right? So instead, you don't need that. You can say, the room is small. Still, you're telling us we already know we're in our room. So my go-to would be to do this: small, gross, in need of feminine touches. I'm not sorry, just don't worry about the typos. Okay, I have them; they're all the time. Okay, so I'm not saying in need of feminine touches like, oh well, what? So men can't decorate and make something pretty? Not my intention. Okay, but this is something you can do that's interesting. So just off the top of my head, through in there, in need of feminine touches. Then the ashtray is overflowing. Or the ashtray, butts fall from the ashtray, right? That tells us, oh, it is overfull without saying it's overfull, right? So you can do that. I love that idea, here that Christopher Dawson put about stale air. A lot of people are like, oh, well, audiences can't understand that the air is stale, or like people are like, oh, it smells like BO in here, or whatever, it smells like rotting fish, or there must be a dead body because it stinks. There's ways to do that. You can also show a character being like grimacing at the smell when they walk in a room. But I mean, yeah, small, gross, stale air. The steak ate. Stale air. Yeah, okay, fine. But that's a visual explanation, right? Snail smoky air. Oh, I love that. Then I don't have to mention the ashtray. It's smoky air, right? So why do we need the ashtray? That's great, right? Stale, smoky, so small, gross, stale, smoky air in need of feminine touches. Now, I'm just kind of like, show you kind of why I decided to throw that there, right? So in need of feminine touches. So is there more here that we can give a visual to really set us in our place? Maybe we can put things like, the sound of a blow dryer echoes from the bathroom, or, there's stains on the ceiling that might be water stains, or might be something else, like putting that kind of thing also shows your voice. It maybe sets a tone, that this might be kind of funny. You want to make sure that we're not setting up a horror movie, right? It's like, oh, this person's about to get killed, right? But what else can you put here? Bed unmade, dresser, drawers open, pizza box on the floor, something like that, right? Like you're still setting the tone, right? Dead roaches, love it. Right? That's like, oh, that's pretty extreme, right? What kind of place are we in, and why is this person even there, right? Moonlight through the dirty curtains. That's great, right? That's a strong visual, right? Midlight through the dirty curtains. Like, that's so good because it just tells us without telling us that this place is gross, right? Like, then I wouldn't need to put gross in there, right? Small, stale, smoky air, moonlight through the dirty curtains. That sets it up really well, right? All these are good, right? Music playing, Katy Perry, that sets a specific tone. Carpet of patchwork stains is a patchwork. Carpet is a patchwork of stains. So these are all great. You can put this in any of these in, and they kind of do the same thing. What you would not want to do is put all of them in, right? You don't want to have every single one in there. You want to do what you can to keep it smooth and fast. And so this is the kind of thing where, so I've written this. Don't just go with your first choice, right? What I always tell people is my rule of a dozen. You want to have at least a dozen ways. You want to try at least a dozen ways to do anything. So I could, good. Dresser, drawers open, pizza box. I put in the, moonlight through the dirty curtains, whatever it is, and then move on and I keep writing. So maybe that's how I start and I keep going. But depending who you are, everyone's got a different style. I would probably sit here and then rewrite it again and again and again and again until one was like, oh my gosh, okay, that's exactly what I want people to think, right? So that's kind of what you can do. But I'm going to go back to this in need of feminine touches, because as people, we assume things, right? So we assume that a motel room that is small, gross, it's smoky, it's messy, Deb unmade. See, if you didn't fix that's a completely different thing. But this is where you want to note it, right? This is where you want to kind of define things. So most people think this is a guy's room, right? But if then, from the bathroom, a woman of 40 years stumbles out in a towel too small for her frame or whatever, right? So whatever that sentence would be, it's just to show in need of feminine touches makes you think, okay, so this is a guy's room. But then a woman comes out of the bathroom and people will then judge that woman, right? Why are you so gross? Why are you so dirty? Women aren't supposed to be like that, right? So it's those assumptions and judgments that people make, right or wrong. It's like, because men and women are just obviously so different, right? I always say the difference between men and women is if there's a stain on the counter in the kitchen, a woman will grab the rag, clean it up. Not every woman, I'm not generalizing, but I'm just in my own experience. A woman would grab a cloth and wipe it up. What would a man probably do? Probably lick his finger and just scrub that stain away and move on, right? There's a big difference in just how men and women are, blah, 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 right? But that is a way to then surprise, right? It's like try and subvert people's expectations, bring up their expectation, and then change it, swap it, right? Make them think of something different. Again, just an example, but when you are describing people, take it from me, especially women, when you're describing women, do not describe their body parts. It's such a ridiculous thing. I can't tell you how annoying it is or what a turnoff on the writing is when someone starts, describing a woman's breasts or her bottom or whatever, right? Like, just don't. You don't, unless it's important, an important detail, then don't do it, right? It's just not needed, and it's it's just annoying. So anyways, so that's just an example. I'm not going to go any further on that. I could do that all day. I could write a whole screenplay sitting here with you people, and maybe that's something fun that can be done down the line. But yeah, if you just keep in mind, really challenge your choices is what it comes down to, right? Really make sure that you are, making the choices to make it come alive in someone's brain in as few words possible. Just cut out any words that aren't needed. Okay. Like, you don't always have to write in one word sentences to do it either, right? You saw it in the Eric Heiserer script. They're short sentences, but they're effective. They're not one words. Some are 3, some are 7, right? But yeah, I just see Tony asked, is the woman a speaking character? Do you need capitals, name, and description? Yeah, from here, I would probably, if she's the character, if she's leading our story, which is always good to start a script with someone who's leading the story, then I would describe her more after. I would say her name. I would put her name in caps and give a bit more description or not. Sometimes you don't even need to describe your character if you show what they're doing, if you show them in action, if you show the room they're living in, you get an idea. So again, if you can do it in a way without using more words, do it. So yeah. So anyways, that and again, speaking character, it doesn't matter if someone's speaking or not. If they're an important character, they should be introduced in caps. Only ever use caps at the character's name the first time you introduce them. I see so many scripts written where every time any character name is mentioned from beginning to end, it's in caps, which shouldn't happen. It's not industry standard. So anyways, I'm going to stop sharing my screen there. Yeah, thanks, Scott. Describing women like that equals cheap writer. Yeah, it's just, come on, man. You don't do that for Guy. You don't say, oh, here's Jim, 3-piece suit. That's about it. You don't go 3-piece suit. You can see the bulge in his pants. Blah, 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 blah. You don't do that, right? Like, so why do it for women? It's just, yeah, it's time to move past that. Okay, cool. So we got about 10 minutes left here. I'm just going to, if you want people, throw some questions out there about, and just not questions like, how do I get a manager? How do we do this and that? But more like visual and format, style, those kind of questions, okay? We answer so many other questions like that about managers and stuff on our podcast. You can always go there. So I'll talk about stuff. And I love this question by Susan right off the start. So you guys start filling out those questions if you have them. I just want to kind of throw this up on the screen here for you. We've just got a discount code here for people. If you are looking for any services, if you want coverage, if you want any kind of stuff on your script, and you go to our site, you're going to order something, type in that code webinar15 to get 15% off of those things. The only thing it doesn't cover is full costs of mentorship programs or rewrite services. They're just a little more involved, a little more to them. I would recommend mentorship to everybody because it's hard to write in a bubble, and no one should write in a bubble. You should always have someone that you can lean on or have read your pages and give you advice, especially if they have a lot of experience. And that's what the mentorship is. It's kind of like one-on-one, kind of like, I guess, what's going on here, but a two-way conversation where it's just break down all the pages, give thoughts, suggestions, throw out ideas. It just helps you grow. Every client I've worked with has grown. Many have become my colleagues because they became so great. I was just like, I need to know you more than this. All of us do, well, not all of us, a lot of us do mentorship, so you can pick and choose who you want. But that 50% coverage will cover an initial assessment for mentorship or a rewrite session, or a rewrite. That's for people who are just maybe stuck or not quite nailing it, and they want one of us to go in and do a pass at the script, that kind of thing. But yeah, 50% off any coverage, line edits, all that kind of stuff, taking out your log line, your synopsis. So difference between us, probably a lot of you know, is that we are all experienced working writers in the business in one way or another. Some of us are at different levels, but everybody has that experience, and you can choose who you want, which is different than, I think, every single site out there. So anyways, we want you to understand that we know where you've been, and this is kind of how we've grown and got through it. So so feel free to use that. Okay, so I am, so webinar 15. So use that if you so desire. Okay, I am going to then look at some of these questions that we've got here and throw out some answers for you. Okay, so when is the code expiring? I don't believe there is an expiry on it. I think it's something that will probably be ongoing for the webinars that we do. we're also going to be doing a lot of labs. If anyone knows what a lab is or doesn't, it's kind of like more of like a master class type thing. It usually runs like 6-8 weeks, one session a week kind of thing, with a very small group of writers, where we go over your pages, we read your full script, we teach each session, we go over stuff, we use examples. It'll have a specific reason for being there, a certain theme like visual storytelling. But watch for those. Those aren't free like a webinar. There's a lot of time and investment in those. And so anyways, watch for that. That's something that we're going to be throwing out there. But yeah, okay. So I'm going to go over some of these questions here. So here we go. Where was that first one? Yeah, Susan. Okay, so Susan. So what about in sex scenes? Yeah, don't go into detail in sex scenes. It's just gross. You might think it's like sexy, or oh, they're gonna really love this or love the detail. No, we don't need, like, there's nothing worse than reading a sex scene and then it starts talking about the body fluids and things. It's just, no, it's just, you don't even know what that sex scene is going to look like when they actually shoot it. So you can go into some detail if it's like important, like how they get there or where they start or where they finish, but don't put us in it and have 2 pages of detail. Don't. People are just going to skim through it and be like, oh, this writer doesn't get it, whatever, right? So yeah, only the details that are needed, right? And all based on character. But that's the most important. That's the most interesting thing in a sex scene is watching how the characters actually, what they do, what they say, how they act. That's the more important thing than the details of what's actually happening. Okay, yeah, back to the Get Out script. He uses Chris 700 times. yeah, I thought the same thing as I was reading it out loud. I'm like, okay, why does he keep saying Chris? And I mean, part of it is we're looking at another person, right? We see Walter, but before Walter arrives, he says Chris a lot. I probably wouldn't do that. I found it to be like, okay, yeah, I get it. So, but again, it's a choice. It's a reason. Sometimes if you use he too much, it's too much. So it's good to find a balance between naming the character and using he, especially if you have like a list of paragraphs. It'd be like, he does this, next paragraph, he does this, right? It's like, oh, okay, switch it up, right? So that's my thoughts on that. Okay, Chris, I found a book called Word Painting by Rebecca McClanahan, Helpful in Descriptive Writing. I'm going to check that out. That's great. Word painting. I love that. I always say, a lot of times in my notes, I'll be like, oh, you paint us a really good picture. I think it's a great visual word. So yeah, word painting. I love it. That's a great descriptor of how it should be. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. That's awesome. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for that. Okay, what's this one here? Can you talk briefly about do's and don'ts in using AI as a brainstorm tool or writing partner? I'm just going to say right now, I think that's a very dangerous direction to go as a writer. If you can find AI to do something you can't do in writing, then you're not important anymore. I can confidently say that I can do things that AI can't do, my ideas come from a different place that are original and fresh and based on my personal world experience. Whereas AI is a collection of everything that's already been said and done and thought of. And then, yeah, it does predict and does come up with, hey, this might be different, whatever. But I mean, you want to brainstorm, you want to throw ideas out there, you want to talk to ChatGPT, go ahead. But I would say when you're actually going to sit down and put the words on the page, put the words on the page. If you're going to get like 95% of screenwriting career isn't sitting in your basement throwing spec scripts out and then everyone's going to buy them. That's not the writing job. Screenwriting is about writing for other people. It's about being brought on to write a project that they want to make. It's about doing rewrites. It's about showcasing why you can do something no one else can. A voice that they've never heard before, especially in television, right? You're not brought on to just because the script you wrote. You're brought on because of your voice, and AI cannot be your voice like you can. So just be very careful with that. Not to be rude, but a writer that needs AI to help them write isn't a writer, in my opinion. A writer is someone who creates stories out of nothing and people out of nothing and builds worlds out of nothing. That's why writers are there. So it's an art to me, not just a craft. So anyways, that's my opinion. Agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. But yeah, that would be my instead of AI, just get a mentor or talk to writing colleagues or friends and bounce ideas back and forth. Human thought is always going to be better, especially in creative ways than something that's artificial. Anyways, that's my opinion. Okay, this one here. How would you write multiple characters in a dramatic scene? How big would you make the action lines? How long do you recommend the dialogue to be? Okay, so it really depends. At the beginning of a story, try not to have multiple characters in a dramatic scene. You want to set people up. You want to get to a point where if we get to a scene with multiple characters, we know them already. Um, how long would you make the action lines? Yeah, if there's no action lines and it's just people talking, it's just people talking. We don't know what we're seeing, right? Even if it's just people in a room, and that's the whole point. They're at a dinner table. But what's more important is not what they're saying, but what they're doing, what their physical actions are, what we're seeing, what we're picking up on, the tone and the atmosphere. So try and make sure you have, action lines in there, but don't overload it, right? Don't, you want to pop them in there here and there if there's not a lot of movement going on, right? If it's a big moment and we're in a stadium and people are chasing and there's all these characters, that's different, right? So how long do you recommend dialogue? Movie dialogue isn't real life dialogue, right? Like most of the time when people are talking, they talk for long periods of time. It's not just I say one sentence, my wife says one sentence, I say one sentence, my daughter says a sentence. I'll talk for like 2 minutes, and then my wife will come in and she'll say a story, and then my daughter will interject, and then I'll say a line, and then my daughter will talk for a minute, right? That's life. But movie dialogue, every single word in movie dialogue must have a reason to be there, not just the line, the word. Every word someone says, everything someone says must have a reason. If you can load it with subtext, great. Not everything needs subtext, but you want to define character with how they talk. So unless someone needs to explain something really long or whatever, try and keep it short. Try and keep it movement and staccato on the page. So that's my advice. Not every scene is the same. That's the thing, right? Not all advice is for every single moment. How can we assure our ideas aren't taken? You can't, but that's the last thing you should ever want to worry about in writing. If someone's going to steal your idea, they're going to steal it whether you've protected it or not. You can take someone's idea and change it because everyone would execute it in a different way. I could give everybody on here, all 100 plus people, here's an idea, go write it. And every one of us would write it different, right? So yeah, once you've written your script, protect it, copyright it, register it with the WGA, mail it to yourself, however you want to do it, protect it. But if you're going to be worried about that, then there's no point in even being in a career that you have to share every single thing with someone with blind trust. You have to be there already. Okay. I have issues, Caesar says, because my vomit draft is in Spanish. We use more elaborate words. What do you recommend? Love this webinar on your podcast. Awesome. Thanks, Caesar. Okay. Yeah, whatever. I mean, languages are always going to be different. I find a lot of times when I read a script, I can pick up whether English is perhaps a second language for a person, or perhaps it was written in another language and translated, because it just doesn't quite sound the same. It doesn't quite have the same fluidity to it. That's tricky. I mean, I guess when you look at that Spanish sentence or explanation and then say, okay, so which words don't work? Which words don't give me what I need? And how would I write it in English completely, not even thinking of Spanish? I don't know. I don't speak multiple languages, except for who I am and how I speak, and then the way I speak in a very apologetic language to my wife all the time when I screw up. Those are my two languages. But yeah, you want to make sure that it comes across as true, English, especially if you're pitching it as an English shot movie with maybe Spanish in it, right? You want to make sure that, because all those readers are probably not going to speak Spanish or be that fluent in understanding it. So yeah, you want to make sure that you're finding a good balance there, and read it out loud. I find that's the best way to do it. Read it out loud, give it to someone who only speaks English, have them read it and highlight everything that didn't quite make sense to them or didn't flow right, or that kind of thing. Maybe that'll work. Fire through a few more here. So do you inform if entering a dream sequence? Oh, great question. Okay, so it really depends on your intention. If the dream sequence is not supposed to be known to us that we're in a dream, right? Which a lot of them are like that, right? We're in a place, something, okay, that's weird. Why is the character doing that? What's going on? And then bam, they wake up, right? So you're not going to tell us it's a dream sequence. You're just going to set us there. When they wake up, make an impact. Bam, they jolt out of bed. Use a capital letter, right? Something to show that was a dream. That's one way. If you want us to know we're in a dream sequence, just say enter dream sequence. Don't put it in you can't do or don't. My advice is do not put it in the scene heading. Because like I said, a lot of readers won't read every detail in the scene heading. There's an understanding that when we get into that next scene, the writing will let us know where we are because it's good writing. So you don't pay all that detail. So if it's a flashback or dream sequence in the scene heading, it just might be missed. And then that causes confusion, which pushes a reader out And if they've got 1,000 other scripts to read, they might just put it down. They may be like, no, I'm done then, right? So you want to make sure, but yeah, enter dream sequence, enter montage, enter flashback. And then at the end, end it, end montage or end dream sequence, or back to scene, or cut that dream sequence to the person waking up or whatever, in a new scene heading. But yeah, don't just slide it in so we can't quite see it. Question about subtext. Do you have to, maybe I can't see that full question. Subtext. So Michael, subtext means what a character is really saying underneath the words they're using. And you'll find that in most movies, it's in there, at least it's in some way. People are, like you're saying something, but you want to insult someone and tell them that they're dumb. You can say something like, oh, so what book did you read that you got that out of? You're not actually wanting to know what book they're reading that they got it out of. You're telling them they're dumb or they're lying, or you're not smart enough to think that up on your own. You wouldn't say that. Oh, you're not smart enough to think that up on your own. You would say something like, what book did you get that out of? Or what meme did you pull that quote out of? Something like that's subtext. You're saying something, but you're intending them to understand what you're really saying. That kind of thing, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's a great way to explain it or not, but let's see here. Do or do not. There's no AI. Yeah, love it. Okay, so concept is king. What is your process? Yeah, I usually come up with a concept before my characters, or I have this really cool tool I use. I think of an occupation, and I think of someone who would have that occupation, and then I always think, well, what's the worst thing that could happen to that person based on who they are and their occupation? A lot of times that's how I'll come up with an idea, or just stupid things come to me and I think, I like that. I'm going to write that down, and then maybe it turns into an idea one day. But yeah, concept, especially if you want to get someone to read your script, it's always going to be the concept, the idea, right? Because that's how you get them to pay attention. So, even if it's like a dramatic drama, right? It doesn't have a big concept. There's still a concept, right? This person does this and this happens, right? So yeah, concept a lot of the times, but it's a mixture for me. Or I'll find that character and I'll pair them with a concept that I've thought of, that kind of thing. Oh yeah, here's a good question. So Susan said, I've written my first screenplay and the analytics say it is 81% dialogue. Is it too late to remedy this? And if not, how? So that's the thing is that a good thing or a bad thing? Some screenplays that are 81% dialogue might be absolutely brilliant. Look at any Aaron Sorkin screenplay. It's like dialogue all day. It just depends. If so you write something contained, you're in a small space, you're going to rely on dialogue because you don't have big set pieces and action and all this stuff to go. So it really depends on the script. If analytics say so, but have as many people read it as possible. And if any of them are saying, or many people consistent are saying, there wasn't enough action, I couldn't see what I needed to see, or I didn't always know what was going on, or people talk too much, it felt like a play, there's no movement. It depends on where that is. But yeah, analytics sometimes it doesn't matter, because that's not what a movie is supposed to be. Organic. A TV show is supposed to be organic. So it's all situational, I think. So AI has been useful. I like this. AI has been useful to me to get detailed descriptions inside locations I've never been to. Yeah, using it for that, using it for research, trying to understand stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's just going to be everything now. Anyone who Googles something now, it doesn't just used to be like, hey, how do I do this? And then here's 25 links of different people sharing their thoughts. Now it's like, how do I do this? And then it starts with, here's an AI breakdown of everything I found to explain it in a way that you'll get it. That's useful AI, right? But brainstorm your ideas and all that kind of stuff is what I meant, that I wouldn't use it personally. You guys can see all these, so I don't need to go in all the comments. A couple more questions here and then we'll be done. This is a good one. How many people should you get feedback from in your script before you can feel confident in putting it out there? Infinite. I've known a lot of people. I've met a lot of writers over my life. I have at least a dozen that I trust that I will send stuff to. Because the best thing about getting multiple people's feedback is that everyone's going to have their own opinion. It's all subjective. Everyone is going to see something differently. Some people will love it, hate it, in between, whatever. But if you send it to 10 people, you're going to see whether there's consistencies. If 3 or 4 people are saying, you know what, I didn't get this, or I didn't like that ending, or I hated that character, or if it's consistent, it's something to look at. there's nothing worse than getting feedback from one person, even one of us, right? Or even, someone that you've had read the script in a professional manner. If something resonates with you, great. But it doesn't mean you have to go and just change everything because that one person said these things all need to be changed. It's a matter of consistency, because every reader, you give to 10 readers, they're all going to see it differently. They're all going to think of it differently. I remember when we first sent mine out, we sent it to this big company that had 3 readers go over it for advancement, and like one absolutely loved it, gave it a recommend, saying blah blah blah, it was great. The second reader was like, this is really good, consider, here's some ideas. The third person said hard pass, not even like nicely passing, but like hard pass. Worst script I've read. You never know. And same script, not a word is different. So everyone will have a different opinion. More feedback you get, more eyes you get on your script, look for the consistencies, and that's what you trust, right? That's when you want to think, okay, maybe I got to look at this, right? Barbara, can I share the first page of Incision at some point? Oh yeah, for sure. Thanks. Yeah, Incision made the most movement happen for me in my career. I wrote it a long time ago. It had a really big contest run, did really well about like 10 plus years ago. And yeah, that first page really pulls people in, and I get a lot of feedback on that. So yeah, maybe another webinar or on podcast. Happy to do that. Okay, so say a small informal peer writers group. Yeah, this question here. Then yeah. Exactly what I said. Very, 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 very good answer, Anita. Let's see here. One more question and see if I can find. Let's see. Let's just see here. So I think in one of your first examples, you said something like he became terrified. Is that exposition? Should you describe his terror? You obviously didn't, and it worked. How much exposition do you feel comfortable with? Yeah, I mean, the best exposition is exposition that we don't know is exposition, right? It's you're telling us something, but we're not like, oh, okay. Oh, I get it. Yeah, you're beating us over the head. He becomes terrified. There's 1,000 different ways to write it. Write one, like I said, rule of a dozen. Write it a dozen different ways until one hits you, knocks you over, and be like, oh, I get it, right? Because there's so many ways to say someone's terrified, and everyone gets terrified in a different way. My wife and daughter hate going to horror movies with me because I'm not even joking. I'm afraid. I write horror. I love horror, but I'm so scared of the dark. I'm scared of the unknown. I don't like that. When I go to a movie theater and we watch a horror movie and there's a jump scare, I literally like whoop out loud, like a whoop, and I run in my seat. Like I start running, like I need to get out of there in my seat. And they both look at me and they're like, oh my gosh, you're so embarrassed. You're so embarrassing. I'm so embarrassed. That is terror. When I had terror, I run in my seat. Next person might not. If someone gets goosebumps, that might say terror. Showing their hair standing up on the back of their neck, if they have any, that shows terror. So many things are ways to show terror, and it should come down to who that character is, right? Anything you're going to have a character do, ask how they would do it. How would this person show their fear, right? How? It's all based on personal experience, and if you don't know your character enough, tough. You're not going to pull it off, right? So that is that. That wraps it up. Remember, we have that webinar 15 code for you. If you do want to get any services, check out our website. We've got everything you could possibly need on there. And we're good people, good writers. So thanks again. Watch for more of these. We're doing one a month. I'll be on here doing one every month and passing stuff on. If you want to look into mentorship with me or any of our other people, feel free to ask about it. Send your script in for a cheap initial assessment. We'll let you know what we think and how we can work together. It's a great tool to grow your confidence, become a stronger writer, and then get eyes on a consistent basis on your script. So about the recording, I'm not, just check in on that. Maybe send a question after. That's one thing I don't know yet, but I will ask about whether this is available afterwards. But anyways, it is recorded, so hopefully we can get that out to people if they need it. Next time we need Desiree. Okay, Caesar, we'll do it. I'll get Desiree on here next time. She always adds to things. So cool. Thanks for coming along, everybody. Appreciate it. Once again, Scott at scriptreaderpro.com. If you ever want to connect, check out our website, scriptreaderpro.com. Check out our podcast on whatever podcast platform you're on. I hope you were entertained. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. And you can take it from here and craft wonder, because that's what we're all supposed to do. So thanks again. You guys take care, and we'll see you next month. All right. Bye, everybody.